Yeah, see, I thought I am very Scottish, and then I wondered how Scottish I was, and maybe it's English, and it turns out I'm, like, very distantly related to Alfred the Great, and then a whole bunch of people said, "Oh, billions of people are doing that," so I don't know if it's even true, so we'll have to see.
Now, is it really like that? Not to like discredit your heritage or anything, but is it really that like impressive to be related to like a distant king or whatever? Like, is like a quarter of the world's population related to Genghis Khan or something like
That's what I
that?
keep
Like,
hearing. So that's why I've only talked about it with my dear friends like you right now on the internet. So and not spread it around. But yeah, all joking aside, going back into your ancestry is pretty crazy. So that was pretty cool. But the thing I wanted to mention at the bottom of the show, if we have time, is the fact that now Canadian taxpayers own vacant land in Senegal. But I don't know if that makes us like an emperor or something. It's pretty
We
good.
we own vacant land in Senegal, but no Canadians can afford to own land in Canada. Wonderful.
well, according to the liberals, isn't that like neo-colonialism or something? Like, I don't think like we're not. I don't think we're supposed to do that according to
I
them.
think we have a clip of Trudeau. Okay, since we're already getting into the show, we should probably start the show. Let's get this thing started. Hi, my name is Kris Sims. I'm the Alberta Director for the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. I'm sitting in here for True North on Off the Record with my dear friends, Isaac and Noah. Gentlemen, we have a lot to get to. And for our viewers and listeners, a warning, we have a lot of Trudeau clips. I actually hear from people who say, I need a warning. So this is your warning. And they're really good clips. You have to listen to them. Gentlemen, where do we want to start? Do we want to start with DEI, or do we want to start with him getting big mad about the carbon tax bumper stickers?
Let's start with carbon tax.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So just to set this up, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau gave a speech at the Halifax Chamber of Commerce out there on the East Coast. It was quite the speech. I listened to all like 52 minutes of him from Monday night. And then he did a sit down where he talked about a lot of stuff, especially the carbon tax. And he went over again this canard that you can magically give the government money in the form of a carbon tax, and they will magically give you more back than you paid in at no cost to you, which is not true. And then he seemed to get, like, really upset, like, ranty even, about bumper stickers and the state of politics. So, without further ado, let's listen first to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau explaining, in his view, the carbon tax to all of us.
We're not having real conversations around politics now. We're having, 7-second TikTok videos. We're having a bumper sticker or a flag that's waving when I'm around. That's political discourse and debate. Of course, it's easy to say, tax is bad. Sorry, I don't know why I sounded like Frankenstein when I was doing that, but okay. Fire bad. But having conversations about how we actually solve the challenges we're facing in this world in thoughtful ways, how we reduce our emissions and support hardworking families, that's a more complex answer than my opponents actually want you to have.
Quite out there. I will point out that the tee-up question for this was something like, "So, your party really tanked in the provincial election, and it was largely because of the carbon tax, and people really rejected it. What do you think about that?" And his answer was this big, long-winded rant, paraphrasing here, but how people aren't smart enough to grasp the genius of his carbon tax policy, which is a really bad idea to tell voters. Gentlemen, what did you guys think of this when he did this sit down?
Yeah, I mean, Trudeau's response we've seen from so many members of the Liberal caucus, which was not a response at all. You ask them a question and they just start talking about some random virtue signaling thing that might not even be related, quite frankly. And yeah, I mean, I don't know why the Liberals keep repeating their 8 out of 10 Canadians are better due to the carbon tax lie that the PBO has repeatedly disproven. And as we talked about before the show, Kris, I was mentioning, let's say the cost is a few $100s per family in Canada based on the PBO reports. I mean, we all know it's much higher than that because these reports don't go into the trickle down effect of the production line, because when you tax gas or diesel and something you buy has 10 different lines of transportation that it's taxed on, of course, you're going to pay more. The fact that any Canadian could believe they get more back in the carbon tax is ridiculous. And Canadians obviously aren't buying the lie based on all the polls and data we've seen.
Yeah, and to add on to your point, Isaac, I mean, the parliamentary budget officers found that, when accounting for the fiscal and economic impacts, Canadians lose over $1,000 a year from the carbon tax. And it's probably higher because the parliamentary budget officer generally, makes these reports, very modestly and very cautiously, and they're not exactly trying to account for every little thing that could be causing the households to have a net loss when it comes to the carbon tax. And this is especially affecting people in Alberta because Albertans are on average paying about $2,300 net in net cost to the carbon tax, and it's a lot higher than other parts of the country. It seems as if prime ministers with the last name Trudeau just have a knack for getting after Albertans and making their lives a little harder. So I think Canadians when you tell them that it's raining, but yeah, you really it's just a guy ahead of you just pissing on you. It's people are gonna get sick of it. You can't continually gaslight Canadians for 9 years and they feel the effects of your policies and then tell them be grateful for our rebates while we are actually just like robbing you blind and causing a net negative impact to the economy.
So careful on gaslighting because that's natural gas and there's a carbon tax on natural gas. So I'm not sure how much Trudeau's paying to gaslight us with the carbon tax on natural gas. As far as the numbers go here for Alberta, just to give you an idea, like for across the country, the mandatory minimum carbon tax, the first carbon tax, because we have several, on diesel is 21 cents per liter. So if you do that math, really, and you fill up a big rig truck, for example, that's about $200 extra just in the carbon tax, not including administration cost, not including GST. And the truckers finally came out and said so. I think it's costing them $2 billion this year. That's just the first carbon tax. Also, keep in mind for home heating, right now, I don't know about you guys, but it's pretty frosty out here in Lethbridge. Everything is coated in ice and frost. And most of us use natural gas for home heating here in Alberta. And the average Alberta household will pay about $400 extra just this winter, just in the carbon tax. So it is a huge expense for people. And this is something I wanted to get into because the Prime Minister clearly does not understand what it is to pay a bill. I mean, let's be honest here. He's never had to worry about his bill in his entire life. He was born wealthy. He was raised largely at 24 Sussex in a taxpayer-funded mansion, and he has staff to do stuff for him. Now, it's okay to be wealthy. We want people to achieve and work hard. But what really gets frustrating for people is when he's the prime minister and he keeps lecturing the rest of us about how important his carbon tax is and how we should be prioritizing that over feeding our kids and paying rent. And he said that again during this chit chat. He also said it for the first time on stage a couple of weeks ago in Brazil, which was just bonkers. It went crazy online. But I wanted to pull up one of his other greatest hits that he dug up during this chat. And that's where he says something to the effect of, he said this a few weeks ago, you know what, Isaac and Noah, the only people who are truly feeling the cost of the carbon tax are people with mansions with indoor swimming pools and a bunch of personal cars. He doubled down on that. But get this. Now it's up to 3 mansions. Listen to this.
If everyone gets, here in Nova Scotia, about $824 a year from the Canada Carbon Rebate, that's the average price. Now, if you have 3 big mansions with an indoor swimming pool, that $824 a year isn't going to cover that price on pollution. You're choosing to pollute more than we're giving you back for. But if you're a middle-class family, and if you're living in rural areas, we give a 20% top-up because we know you have to drive further to go to school, to drop your school or work. We're giving you that money back.
So again, he keeps pushing this. And to your point, Noah, with the latest parliamentary budget officer report, because of course they've gone back and forth and they fought over what the real numbers are, even in the most conservative possible read of it, when you go take a look at the overall impact of the carbon tax, the average Alberta family, even on paper, is still out $400 this year. And it's only going to go up as they continue to increase the carbon tax. So even his own data defies this, which is, of course, a violation of common sense. I don't know about you guys, but I did not grow up with an indoor swimming pool, and no judgment. Did either of you guys grow up with an indoor heated swimming pool?
I don't know. My roof has a hole in it, so yeah. Take your guesses.
So,
No, my roof has a hole in it too.
so my roof is intact, thank goodness. But of the people on this call and in this chat, we've played a clip from a guy twice who grew up in an indoor swimming pool at 24 Sussex. Just saying. In fact, it was installed when his dad was Prime Minister. So we know for factsies that he grew
I
up,
don't even know
at
that.
least partially, with an indoor heated swimming pool. So speaking of not getting it, I didn't watch this clip because it wasn't pertaining to like balanced budgets or carbon tax or something. But apparently he said something along the lines of he was really sad that Kamala Harris didn't win the presidency. Who wants to take this one away?
Well, I can.
Gibber.
Basically, basically, Justin Trudeau, he has been trying to, I guess, ease tensions between Canada and the United States, specifically because Donald Trump recently said that he would be imposing a 25% tariff on Canada and Mexico, as so long as we do not meet certain conditions pertaining to border security and drug smuggling. So, while we're in the middle of this, tense negotiation, Trudeau gets up on stage in all of his hubris and progressive aura and basically says that, I kind of wish that Kamala Harris won the election, and, her losing the election is, quote, women's progress under attack. I think we have a clip for this, so we should hear it from the donkey's mouth himself.
Now, it shouldn't be that way. It wasn't supposed to be that way. We were supposed to be on a steady, if difficult sometimes, march towards progress. And yet, just a few weeks ago, the United States voted for a second time to not elect its first woman president. Everywhere, women's rights and women's progress is under attack, overtly and subtly. But I want you to know that I am, and always will be, a proud feminist. You will always have an ally in me and in my government.
I mean, absolutely ridiculous, especially considering what he did to Jody Wilson-Raybould and Jane Philpott. But like, I don't want to go on too much of a tangent. But when he talks about the sort of march of progress or whatever he says, that's a very sort of like left-wing view of the world that we have to get rid of old traditional mores, and we have to get rid of the values that Canada was founded on and our civilization was founded on, and instead replace it with these new progressive values. And we've basically been dealing with that for the past 9 years, and look what it's gotten us. We basically got rid of the old values of moderate immigration, and he wrapped it up, and look what's happened. He's got rid of the idea that we're supposed to be Canadians first and foremost and have pride and love for our country, and instead, went toward this post-national view of the country. And look what's happening in our streets when we have people marching for foreign terrorist groups in Montreal and in Toronto. It's absolutely ridiculous. This is the sort of worldview that Justin Trudeau's worldview gets us to. So, what did you guys make of Justin Trudeau saying that Kamala Harris's defeat is, an attack on women and their progress and their rights?
Yeah, so my first takeaway from what Trudeau said there is he is essentially saying DEI should supersede democracy. This from the leader of Canada, the Prime Minister of Canada, a democratic nation. I mean, the fact that anyone could possibly agree with those words being uttered by our leader is shocking. I mean, in what world should world leaders be chosen on DEI attributes, not because they're brilliant, economically savvy, smart? I mean, the list goes on of adjectives you could use, by the way, none of which I believe Kamala Harris was. So there's the good example. And we saw we saw how decisive of an election it was in the United States. They clearly voted against DEI initiatives. So Trudeau's kind of on the other side of the coin, and I mean, I think in the near future here we're going to see at least the Western world completely shun DEI. So Trudeau can continue down this path, but I don't know that that will get him much support.
So, as a woman, I find it really insulting and demeaning for him to try to speak for me. I think that's gross. As someone who values lower taxes and balanced budgets, has he met Premier Danielle Smith? She's the Premier of Alberta. And as of right now, and it better stay that way, keeping an eye on you, the budget is balanced here in Alberta. We are saving money in the Heritage Fund. We have a Taxpayer Protection Act that they have beefed up so that if they wanted to increase any personal taxes that are already existing, we'd have to have a referendum to do it. Like, there are a lot of awesome things here happening fiscally in Alberta, and the premier happens to be a woman. So this should be based on numbers and results and merit and performance. He might have cracked open a history book. I think his father probably met the late Margaret Thatcher. She was just prime minister of, the United Kingdom for more than a decade. So it's weird to have just saying, as a woman who's been in the political arena now for like 25 years, it's weird to have the prime minister making this about men and women rather than, number one, that's another country and they had a democratic election and that's their choice. Two,
Yep.
you got to go into negotiations with this dude now that you just finished saying out loud with your face, wished hadn't won. That's not going to go super awesome for you. And three, it's weird to have him overlooking really competent political leaders who happen to be women here in Canada for the purpose of his own narrative. So that can get squishy there. Did we want to go to GST? Who wants to take the fun with the GST?
Right, the GST poll.
Yeah, the GST poll. So for folks who don't remember, we've got a temporary reprieve of GST on some items you find in the grocery store and other stuff like, kids' clothes and diapers, which frankly shouldn't have GST anyway. And it's going to last for a couple of months. And then there's also a February, if I'm correct, everybody's supposed to get, who's working, is supposed to get about $250 each. So, but there's a poll now out on it.
Yeah, and this poll went into both the GST, HST holiday, and the $250 check, highlighting that essentially Canadians are not buying what the Liberals are selling. So yeah, this was a survey from the Angus Reid Institute, and it asked Canadians about, as I mentioned, both the $250 one-time check and the GST, HST cuts, which, by the way, both policies will cost more than $6.2 billion. This with what's our debt at now, Kris? 1.25 trillion, just over that.
Yep.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about this poll was it really went into the data, and it showed that over a quarter of the poll respondents said they weren't even eligible for the check. Even more, almost 40% said it would have absolutely no impact on their household, while only just over 30% said it would help a little. But get this, only 5% of Canadians said it would help a lot. So that's not really doing anything for them. And then going into the GST, HST exemptions, this over half, 55%, said that it'll do nothing to help their household. And then over a third, 38% said it would help a little. But again, only 7% said it would help a lot. And yeah, the poll got into all the income groups and age groups and, of course, the parties as well, which, as you would expect, the Conservatives were the most likely to say that these policies were, quote, entirely political, with 82% of those who intend to vote Conservative saying that, compared to when you look at all parties, it was 55% overall who said that it was entirely political.
That is rough, actually. That's
Yeah,
rough.
I mean, there's so much data I could go into it all, but basically all you guys need to know is that Canadians aren't buying either of the policies. Yeah, what do you think about that?
Go ahead, Noah.
Well, yeah, I think that it's entirely political, and Canadians know that, and they don't want to feel bought off. I mean, this is the type of stuff that happens in democracy in like Latin America or like Africa or something, where before an election they're just handing out a couple $100 to people. It's like, okay, now go vote for us. That's exactly what Trudeau wants to do, especially since there was speculation that the Liberals might want to try and call for a spring election, or at least maneuver things to parliament so that an election does occur in the spring, right? Just before or after the checks get mailed out to Canadians. So, and you see this in other provinces too, like
Oh,
in
yeah.
British Columbia and in Ontario and
Happened
Quebec.
here.
Is part of the reason. But the thing is, this stuff does not work in Quebec. Francois Legault, I think, mailed out $500 checks to people, I think, during the pandemic and just after the pandemic, and his approval rating is at the lowest it's ever been. I think his personal approval ratings at like 26%, his party's at like 21% in the polls. Doug Ford is immune to all political hits, and so Ontario is just weird like that. In BC, you've seen a big backlash against the EB government, with the BC Conservatives coming within an inch of forming government. And Trudeau is, sticking to these terrible tactics, terrible policies, trying to buy Canadians off. People don't want to feel like it feels grimy, like, getting paid off to, vote for a politician. Like, people don't want to feel like that. So it's actually going to probably cause a backlash and cause more people to move away from the Liberal Party, which I think is absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, speaking of that, Noah, let me just get into that data quickly, which I forgot to mention. This is very, very key, is that it actually is causing a backlash. So get this, less than 2% of the respondents, this excluding those that already intend to vote Liberal, said that these policies would make it, quote, much more likely that they would vote for the Liberals in the future elections. Whereas 3% said that it would make it, quote, more likely. 55% said it would make no difference. But get this is where it gets interesting. So 8% of respondents said that these policies would make it, quote, less likely for them to vote Liberals in the future, whereas 28% said that it would make it, quote, much less likely that they would vote Liberals in the future due to these policies. So what do you, yeah, I mean, these are insane numbers. What do you think about
People don't want to be
the
bought off.
backlash we're seeing from these policies? I mean, clearly they are panning out terribly.
Yeah, people don't want to be bought off, and like $250, it's marginal. The carbon tax, it's rinsing Canadians for thousands of dollars every year. Instead of mailing out these checks and be like, oh, here you go. After we've robbed you blind, I'm gonna give you. So it's like that meme where the guy hands out a $10 bill from like his wallet where he has $100, and the guy just takes the wallet instead of the $10 bill. So you're left with a little, instead of giving the guy what you actually wanted. Like, this is like that meme in real life. They're gonna rinse you with thousands of dollars with the carbon tax. They're gonna rinse you with increases in taxes elsewhere, and the capital gains tax. Yeah, economic activity is gonna go down. Wage growth is gonna be stunted. Like, oh, here's $250. Like, people know that this is absolutely ridiculous, and it's gonna hurt the Trudeau Liberals politically, as it should.
To me, it's a big indicator. That 28%, that's a big number. To me, this just indicates people are angry, like really angry. And no matter what this government does, it sounds like, it's just going to keep on getting angrier. It's one of those situations where it's almost like an interpersonal fight, where a line has been crossed and you're completely done with that person. It's like, no, no, no. No matter what you say, it is going to make me madder. So
They
the
come
only
back with
thing,
some roses. It doesn't
no,
really like,
no,
oh,
exactly.
past that.
Take your chocolates and I'll chuck them over the fence, right? So it seems like we're getting to that boiling point. Now, and again, to be fair, this happens in government. People were super mad at the Brian Mulroney government, and that is why the PCs were reduced to 2 seats. So to me, that was a conservative government, kind of. And to me, this is feeling like that again, where people are just completely done and they're at the moment of let's vote the bums out. I will also point out that even the so-called sausage making isn't working very well right now in Ottawa. So quite often it's important to kind of pull back the curtain like in The Wizard of Oz and see what's going on behind the curtain. And apparently, for example, the Premier of New Brunswick, who's a newly elected Liberal Party Premier of New Brunswick, was barely consulted about this temporary GST pause. So much so that, especially in Atlantic Canada, they have an HST. So meaning their provincial sales tax, which we do not have here in Alberta, thank you very much. Their provincial sales tax is enmeshed with the federal one. And apparently she had like a 36-hour heads up. And oh, by the way, this is going to blow this big of a hole in your provincial budget in the revenue column. Now, again, I'm all for a tax cut. That's a really good thing. I'm talking about the fact that there was nearly no consultation, even with your closest players. And a birdie was telling me, because I still have a lot of friends in Ottawa, bless them, that apparently even the bureaucrats, so those in the department, the unelected part of the financial department, they still have some adults working in there, believe it or not, were tearing their hair out at this, saying, "What? You're doing what? You haven't talked to whom?" Like, so this was a seat of your pants, quick grasp to try to fix stuff. And again, if you're giving me $250 back of my own money, I'm going to take it because that goes a ways towards your energy bill. It can buy a few groceries. That is a good thing. But the fact that they could even screw up a tax cut,
It's ridiculous. Like even good ideas, and I don't think it's a good idea, but even like good ideas implemented poorly, it's just going to be bad policy that's not going to help anyone. But this is like a policy that was written on the back of a napkin and then handed over to Christopher Freeland's like implement this now. Like I sort of imagine like there was a cabinet meeting. Trudeau's hearing from the cabinet ministers. Didn't like what you want to or what they were saying. So, brings Melanie Jolie into the back room. They each have a scotch with one another. And then they conceive of this plan, and then they're like, okay, guys, this is what we're doing. And Freeland's like, what? All the bureaucrats are like, you can't do this. And like, no, we're doing it. So, like it's just a bad idea. You know, Tax relief, it's great. Do it properly though, and they're absolutely not doing that. And they obviously didn't give the bureaucrats enough time to be able to implement this properly, which is bad governance. It's the opposite of good government.
reminds me of lining up to take a quick sprint, like a good race, and just forgetting to tie up your shoes. And you just
Yeah.
trip and fall on your teeth. So this is kind of what this is happening. Do we want to get on to our last story here, the fun one about global affairs spending millions of dollars to own stuff around the world? Who wanted to take that one away?
I
Quicker.
could if you
You did
unless
write
you
it
wanted
up.
to. I did, but this was based, of course, on the CTF's write up, which you had done, Chris. So, but if you want me to do it, sure, that's fine. So
You
of
did a really
course,
good write up on it, so I think you should get the cred. So give her.
thank you, Chris. Yeah, of course, the CTF, through some access to information documents, revealed that taxpayers were funding the tab for a federal department's real estate portfolio, which was costing $186 million over the last decade. This was from Global Affairs Canada, who owns more than 400 properties in over 70 countries. And no, people, these aren't standard properties. For example, one of the expenses, $12.5 million for vacant land in Senegal. I mean, what are we talking about? Who pays $12.5 million for vacant land, except maybe in Vancouver?
Maybe we're gonna build another Disneyland there. I hope not.
All the people
Yeah.
in Vancouver right now is like, this goddamn Isaac, he's making fun of our province.
That's true. My favorite part of that, and I say favorite because folks who are watching this that are like really struggling, I know. But we have to stay happy warriors. If we don't laugh, we will cry about this. Also, it's really important to laugh at this government because they hate it. Like they take themselves super seriously. Like they think they're landed dukes. The Prime Minister of Canada is paid more than $400,000 per year, taxpayer funded, and lives in a mansion with staff. So it's important for us as jesters to poke and laugh at the king. Super important. So my favorite part of this was the fact that taxpayers are on the tab for $41 million for properties that we own in Afghanistan. Now, before you get started on the whole Operation Medusa and all that stuff, no. Folks, they bought this in late 2018, 2019, well into the early indications that we'll be leaving soon, guys. So I think this happened after then US President Donald Trump was having meetings with the Taliban saying, yeah, knock it off and we're leaving. So pretty much everybody in the Western world, as far as I could tell by then, knew we were leaving, but nope, here comes Canada, Foreign Affairs Canada. We're going to spend $41 million on property. And by the way, that's now obviously being totally controlled by the Taliban. We have no way of even checking on it.
But boneheaded the decision to buy this. I mean, like, you couldn't rent it. Like, like, why'd you have to own the piece of land? And like, furthermore, I've got you. Like, you guys invaded Afghanistan. Just take it. You don't have to buy the land. Like, I just take it. It's right there. Like what are we doing here? Like it's absolutely ridiculous that global affairs like is just wasting taxpayers' money like they have unlimited amounts of cash. Like $10.2 million on a chancery in Ukraine. I don't even know what a chancery is. I had to look that up. Like vacant land in Senegal. I mean, come on, guys. We can do a little bit better. Have some more care for the taxpayer and the value of their dollar.
A chancery is kind of a super special embassy with an official residence, correct?
Like, why do we need that though? Like, settle it. Like, like the Ukrainians need like shelter for the bombs that's dropping. Like let them have it. I don't know. It seems ridiculous to me.
It's also an awful lot of money, again, on the New York embassy as well, with the official residence there. The point of this is that quite often when we'll yell about the fact that the budget is horribly imbalanced, as of right now, technically on paper, the deficit is about $40 billion in the red. To give you an idea of what kind of money that is, that would build you 38 brand new, really awesome hospitals. That's just the deficit. And we don't have the fall economic statement yet, but apparently all the rumors is that it's going to be even a bigger deficit. So whenever we yell at them and say, could you clowns try to balance the budget? They say something like, oh, what do you want to cut first? Food to orphans or healthcare for grandma? No. How about you not spend $41 million on property in Afghanistan that is now being controlled by the Taliban? Just to start.
Kris, just wanted to get your thoughts on something because I see your defund the CBC sticker in the back there. And obviously, the Canadian Taxpayers Federation previously highlighted that the CBC's real estate portfolio was worth over $444 million across 12 properties. I mean,
Yep.
These properties are over $30 million each. What are they buying?
So the two big ones, again, I don't care. I'm going to pick on Vancouver all I want because I was raised just outside of Vancouver. It used to be a really fun place to work and live. It is not fun anymore because it's outrageously expensive. They own a ginormous piece of property right on the waterfront in Vancouver, is where the CBC headquarters is there in BC. So it's right downtown. I actually think it was right around the corner, frighteningly enough, from like a shooting that happened there just like a few days ago. So that was pretty freaky. So that's now bleeding into like downtown fancy Vancouver. So they own a big property there in downtown fancy Vancouver, right near the water. And also the big one, of course, is in Toronto, that gigantic building that they have there. Like the building is so big that when you walk in, they used to have like 3-story tall pictures of Jian Ghomeshi, who used to be, of course, the host of Q. That like in superhuman size. And they even had 2, I don't know if they still have them. They had these little droids that used to deliver your mail. So your inter-office like mail, if you're mailing something from, one floor to another floor, they had bots that did that before bots were even a thing. Like this thing is huge. So yeah, this is what you're paying for with the CBC. That's why we took them to the cleaners there at the committee, the Heritage Committee, and said, you guys are costing us this year $1.4 billion. You're getting microscopic ratings, and it's wrong for journalists to be paid by the government. And we just think those are inassailable. But you're right. A big chunk of that cost is the holdings of real estate that the state broadcaster is hanging on to. Thank you for reminding me. I'm Matt L again now. All right, folks. That was really fun. Any other parting shots that you would like to take?
Well, I just gotta say that if you are a Global Affairs Canada bureaucrat, like don't spend like you have Elon Musk's wallet, like you don't. It's not a limited amount of money. You can't, spend billions of dollars more on stuff just because you want to buy it, like Musk did for Twitter. Just like spend like you're a college student trying to make ends meet and the taxpayers will thank you for it. But right now, you're gonna have the Canadian Taxpayers Federation on your back because You guys aren't doing a good job.
Thank you. Well, I wish Musk would come up here when he's finished cleaning it up in the States, because we definitely need our own Department of Government Efficiency. But until then, remember, everything is off the record.
Speaking of Musk, we never did get into him, so I'll just reference that quickly because for those who don't know, he mentioned Trudeau on Twitter and Musk said, quote, "He's such an insufferable tool. We won't be in power for much longer." So yeah, oh, there it is. Perfect.
Isn't Musk a Canadian citizen? I think he has like 8 citizenships, but I think he's partly Canadian. I would like him to come up here, if for nothing else, to try to cut some government spending. So thank you for that.